The surprising ancient origins of modern inventions. When we think of modern technology and inventions, we often imagine sleek devices, futuristic tools, and scientific breakthroughs. Born in recent decades, smartphones, eyeglasses, democracy, central heating, even surgery seem to belong firmly in the modern world. But what if I told you that many of these modern ideas have roots thousands of years deep in human history? Civilizations from Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, China, India, and the Islamic Golden Age laid the foundations for much of what we take for granted today. From the first concepts of computers and medicine to forms of government and even fast food, our ancestors were far more innovative than we often give them credit for. In this documentary, we will travel back in time to explore the surprising ancient origins of inventions we consider modern. By the end, you may never look at your everyday objects the same way again. Chapter 1. The first computers. Ancient Greece's Antikythera mechanism. When we think of computers, we picture laptops, smartphones, or giant data centers filled with servers. But what if I told you the idea of computing, of using a machine to process information, goes back more than 2,000 years? That's exactly what the Antikythera mechanism proves. The story begins in 1901, when Greek sponge divers discovered a shipwreck off the coast of the tiny island of Antique. Among the treasures and bronze statues recovered was a corroded lump of bronze and wood that didn't look like much. For decades, it sat in storage, dismissed as nothing special. But as archaeologists began carefully cleaning it, they realized it contained dozens of interlocking gears, dials, and inscriptions. What they had stumbled upon was something astonishing. A device now known as the Antikythera mechanism, often described as the world's first computer. Built around 100 BCE, this ancient Greek invention was designed with a level of mechanical precision thought impossible for the time. So, what exactly did it do? The mechanism wasn't a computer in the digital sense, but it was a complex analog device designed to predict the motions of the heavens. By turning a crank, the user could simulate the movements of the sun, the moon, and even the planets. It could predict eclipses, track lunar cycles, and even calculate the timing of the ancient Olympic Games. In essence, it was a mechanical model of the cosmos, an ancient astronomical calculator. The device used at least 37 bronze gears, many of them cut with teeth so fine they rivaled clockwork from the 18th century. And remember, this was built over 2,000 years before mechanical clocks were even invented in Europe. To put it in perspective, this was like discovering a smartphone in a Roman ruin. For decades, the Antikythera mechanism was a mystery. Early scholars struggled to understand its complexity because large parts of it were missing. It wasn't until the early 2000s, when scientists used X-ray imaging and 3D reconstruction, that its full design began to be revealed. What they found shocked the world. Inscriptions on the device that described its functions in astonishing detail. Vague guesses the mechanism had been deliberately engineered to follow the precise mathematical models of the time. But who could have built such a machine? Historians believe the mechanism may have been the work of a follower of one of the greatest Greek astronomers, or perhaps inspired by Archimedes, who was known for his mechanical genius. Whoever the creator was, they possessed knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and craftsmanship centuries ahead of their time. And then, just as mysteriously as it appeared, the technology vanished. No other device of this complexity is known to have survived from antiquity. It seems the Antikythera mechanism was a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, or perhaps part of a lost tradition of mechanical engineering that disappeared when Rome rose to power and much of Greek scientific knowledge was lost. Why does this matter? Because the Antikythera mechanism challenges our assumptions about progress. We like to think of human invention as a straight line from primitive tools to modern technology. But the truth is far messier. Knowledge can be gained, forgotten, and rediscovered. The Greeks had a mechanical computer millennia ago, but humanity wouldn't see anything comparable until the 14th century with the invention of complex clocks, and then again in the 20th century with electronic computers. Today, the Antikythera mechanism is housed in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, displayed as a reminder of humanity's boundless ingenuity. Scientists continue to study it, hoping to uncover more secrets about its construction and purpose. Each discovery pushes the boundary of what we thought possible in the ancient world. Think about it. While we stare at glowing screens and tap on keyboards, our ancestors once turned cranks and read the stars through gears and dials. The Antikythera mechanism wasn't just a machine, it was a statement of ambition, a symbol of how far human curiosity can reach. It proves that even in the ancient world, people dreamed of decoding the universe with technology. So the next time you use your smartphone to check the weather or a calendar to track an eclipse, remember, the Greeks were doing something very similar 2,000 years ago with a little bronze machine pulled from the depths of the sea. Chapter 2. The first batteries. The Baghdad battery. When you think of electricity, your mind probably jumps to Benjamin Franklin with his kite, Thomas Edison with the light bulb, or maybe Nikola Tesla with his wild experiments. But what if electricity was harnessed not in the 18th or 19th century, but over 2,000 years ago? That's the mystery of the Baghdad battery. The story begins in 1938, when Wilhelm Kn, a German archaeologist working in Iraq, discovered a small clay jar in the ruins near Baghdad. At first glance, it looked ordinary enough, but inside the jar was a copper cylinder, and inside that, an iron rod. The parts were separated by bitumen, a sticky tar-like substance. To Koenig, this wasn't just pottery, it was a device. In fact, he believed it was a battery, built sometime between 150 BCE and 250 CE during the Parthian or Sassanid empires. Now, why would an ancient civilization build a battery? When filled with an acidic liquid such as vinegar, lemon juice, or even grape juicy jar could generate a small electrical current. Experiments with replicas have produced voltages between 0.5 to 2 volts. Not much compared to today's AA batteries, but enough to give a small shock or power simple electrochemical reactions. Some researchers suggest these devices might have been used for a process where a thin layer of metal is deposited onto another surface. Imagine artisans in ancient Mesopotamia using electricity to coat objects with gold or silver, giving them a brilliant finish far more advanced than simple hammering or gilding. Others believe they may have had a ritualistic purpose, used in religious ceremonies to awe worshippers with the mysterious spark of energy. Still, others think they were just storage jars, and Koenig's interpretation might be wishful thinking. The Baghdad battery remains one of archaeology's most controversial finds. Skeptics argued that the jars were simply containers for scrolls or sacred documents. After all, no wires, switches, or evidence of widespread use have ever been found. And unlike the Antikythera mechanism, no inscriptions or instructions accompany them. Without written records, the true purpose of the jars may never be known. But here's the fascinating part. Even if the jars weren't used as batteries, the design is so strikingly similar to modern galvanic cells that the resemblance is hard to ignore. If it was indeed a battery, it would push back humanity's use of electricity by more than 1,500 years long before Franklin or Volta. Let's think about the implications. If ancient people had access to electricity, even in a simple form, how might they have used it? Could it have been applied in medicine, like electrotherapy? Could it have powered small tools? Or was it only a parlor trick, something to amaze and mystify? The truth is, without more evidence, we're left with speculation. What we do know is that the Baghdad battery has captured the imagination of scientists, historians, and even inventors worldwide. Replicas have been tested in museums and labs, and while the results vary, most agree. The device can generate electricity when properly assembled. Whether or not the ancients intended it to, however, remains the great mystery. There's another layer to this story. Throughout history, we've often assumed ancient civilizations were technologically primitive. But discoveries, like the Baghdad battery, challenge that idea. They remind us that innovation is not linear. Knowledge can be lost, rediscovered, or reinvented across time and cultures. What seems modern may, in fact, have roots stretching deep into antiquity. Today, the original Baghdad battery is displayed at the Iraq Museum in Baghdad, where it continues to spark debate literally and figuratively. Visitors stand in awe, wondering if they're looking at a simple jar or a forgotten milestone in the history of electricity. Whether it was truly a working battery or not, the Baghdad find reminds us of something profound. Humans have always been curious, experimental, and inventive. From carving stone tools to possibly generating electricity, we've never stopped pushing boundaries. So the next time you plug in your phone or swap out batteries in a remote control, remember this. 2,000 years ago, someone in ancient Mesopotamia may have been doing something surprisingly similar with a clay jar, a copper tube, and a bit of iron. Chapter 3. Ancient Surgical Tools. Medicine ahead of its time. When we picture ancient medicine, we often imagine crude treatments, herbs, charms, or leeches. But the truth is far more sophisticated. Thousands of years ago, civilizations like the Greeks, Romans, Indians, and Egyptians were performing surgeries with tools and techniques surprisingly advanced for their time. One of the most remarkable examples comes from ancient India, described in the medical text known as the Sushruta, written around the 6th century BCE. Sushruta, often called the father of surgery, detailed procedures for cataract removal, bone setting, and even skin grafts. Yes, plastic surgery existed more than 2,500 years ago. The text describes how damaged noses could be reconstructed using a flap of skin from the cheek or forehead, a procedure known today as the Indian Renault. In ancient Egypt, doctors weren't far behind. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating back to around 1600 BCE, contains case studies of wounds, fractures, and dislocations. It shows that Egyptian physicians understood anatomy and trauma in ways far beyond what we might expect. They performed surgeries, used sutures, and even sterilized wounds with honey, which has natural antibacterial properties. But perhaps the most fascinating surgical tools come from ancient Rome. Archaeological digs at sites like Pompeii and Herculaneum have uncovered sets of bronze and iron instruments that look eerily familiar to modern surgeons. Scalpels, forceps, bone saws, and even vaginal speculums. These tools were used by military doctors, cahiers medici, to treat soldiers on the battlefield. Imagine Roman surgeons performing amputations, extracting arrows, and stitching up wounds with tools that wouldn't look out of place in an operating room today. And it wasn't just trauma care. The Romans practiced trepanation, the delicate act of drilling a hole in the skull. To us, this sounds terrifying, but it was often done to relieve pressure from head injuries or to treat neurological disorders. Remarkably, many skulls show evidence of healing, which means patients sometimes survived the procedure. So how effective were these ancient surgeries? Of course, without modern anesthesia, antibiotics, or antiseptic protocols, operations were far riskier than today. Yet survival rates weren't always as grim as we imagine. Ancient surgeons often relied on natural anesthetics like opium, mandrake, root, and alcohol to dull pain, and their keen observational skills helped them refine techniques over generations. The question is, how did they know so much? Part of the answer lies in their curiosity. Ancient physicians were meticulous observers of the human body. Indian and Greek doctors studied anatomy through dissection. Egyptians gained knowledge through mummification, which gave them unique insight into organs and tissues. Romans, meanwhile, developed practical medical expertise through centuries of warfare, where injuries forced innovation. But there's also a deeper point. Medicine, like technology, isn't a straight line. Knowledge was often lost and rediscovered. For instance, much of the surgical wisdom from Sushruta India faded in the Middle Ages, only to be revived centuries later when his texts reached the Islamic world and, eventually, Europe. Think about it. Procedures that seem cutting-edge today like skin grafts, cataract surgery, or even orthopedic techniques were already being practiced thousands of years ago. Modern surgeons may use stainless steel scalpels and advanced microscopes, but the principles behind those tools trace back to ancient times. One stunning example comes from France, where archaeologists discovered a 7,000-year-old skeleton with a carefully amputated arm. The cut was clean, showing surgical precision, and the bone had healed, proving the patient lived 4 years afterward. This suggests that even prehistoric communities may have had skilled healers capable of complex medical care. So what does all this tell us? That our ancestors weren't as primitive as we sometimes assume. They experimented, learned, and refined their practices, often in ways that laid the groundwork for modern medicine. Today, ancient surgical tools are displayed in museums, not hospitals. but their legacy lives on every time a doctor makes an incision, sets a bone, or performs reconstructive surgery. They remind us that the quest held to push back against injury and disease is as old as humanity itself. In other words, when you see a surgeon holding a scalpel, you're looking at the descendant of a tool used thousands of years ago by healers who dared to cut, stitch, and save lives long before modern science was born. Chapter 4. The world's first vending machine. Ancient Greece's ingenious invention. When you think of vending machines, you probably imagine grabbing a soda, candy bar, or snack with the push of a button. But would you believe the very first vending machine dates back nearly 2,000 years to ancient Alexandria in Egypt? This clever invention is credited to Hero of Alexandria, a Greek engineer and mathematician who lived during the 1st century CE. Hero is famous for designing all kinds of mechanical wonders, including early steam engines and automated theaters, but one of his most surprising creations was a holy water dispenser. World's first vending machine. Here's how it worked. Worshippers entering a temple would place a coin into a slot. The coin's weight pulled down a lever inside the machine, which opened a valve. A measured amount of holy water would then flow out for purification rituals. Once the coin fell off the lever, the valve closed, stopping the flow. Sound familiar? It's essentially the same principle modern vending machines use. Insert money, get a product. Hero's invention solved a very practical problem. Before this, worshippers might take too much holy water, wasting the temple's supply. With the machine, every coin guaranteed a fair, measured portion. This device wasn't just a temple gimmick, it was a glimpse of automation thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution. Imagine walking to a sacred temple in Alexandria and encountering a machine that sold you holy water. To the average worshipper, it must have felt like magic. What's even more fascinating is how Hero's inventions prefigured modern technologies. His holy water vending machine foreshadowed not just vending machines, but also the concept of pay-per-use systems. He also designed automatic doors, steam-powered devices, and even mechanical toys, all powered by physics, not electricity. Unfortunately, many of Hero's inventions never spread widely in his lifetime. They were written down in texts like Pneumatica, but much of his work was treated as novelty rather than practical technology. Had they been adopted more broadly, the course of history might have accelerated by centuries. Still, the fact that a vending machine existed in the ancient world is It reminds us that human ingenuity is timeless. Whether it is dispensing holy water in a temple 2,000 years ago or selling soda in a train station today, the desire to make life more convenient has always driven invention. So the next time you grab a snack from a vending machine, think about Hero of Alexandria, the ancient genius who first turned coins into convenience. Chapter 5. Ancient Medicine and the Birth of Healthcare. When we think of modern healthcare, we imagine hospitals, advanced machines, and cutting-edge drugs. Yet, the foundation of medicine goes back thousands of years, to a time when ancient healers blended observation, ritual, and natural remedies to treat illness. Egypt, the pioneers of medical texts. The ancient Egyptians were among the first to document medical practices. The Edwin Smith Papyrus around 1600 BCE is considered the world's oldest surgical text. It describes over 40 injuries and their treatments, many of which were practical and surprisingly scientific for their time. Egyptians also relied on natural remedies. Honey was used as an antibacterial ointment, while garlic and onions were believed to boost immunity. India, Ayurveda, and holistic healing in India. The system of Ayurveda developed more than 3,000 years ago. It viewed health as a balance between body, mind, and spirit. Ayurvedic practitioners categorized illnesses, performed early surgeries like rhinoplasty, and used herbs such as turmeric and neem, which modern science confirms have medicinal properties. The Sutta Samhita, an ancient Sanskrit text, even described hundreds of surgical instruments and procedures. China, acupuncture, and herbal wisdom. Ancient China gave the world acupuncture, a practice still used today. Chinese medicine emphasized energy balancing, and young believing illness arose from imbalance. Texts like the Huan Di Najing, the Yellow Emperor's classic of medicine, outlined treatments involving herbs, massage, diet, and acupuncture points. Many herbs from these traditions, like ginseng and ginger, remain staples in modern remedies. Greece, the birth of medical ethics. The Greeks shifted medicine further towards science. Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine, introduced the idea that diseases had natural not. He also established ethical guidelines still echoed in today's Hippocratic oath taken by doctors. Chapter 6. Ancient warfare technologies that shaped modern armies' war has always been a driving force for innovation. Many tools, tactics, and technologies we associate with modern armies ranging from armor to military strata trace their origins to the ancient world. The chariot, the first tank long before tanks rolled across battlefields. The chariot dominated ancient warfare. First developed in Mesopotamia and perfected by Egyptians around 2000 BCE, these two-wheeled vehicles revolutionized combat. Fast, mobile, and deadly. They allowed archers to shoot while moving. In many ways, they were the high-speed strike vehicles of their time, comparable to today's armored vehicles. Greek fire. The ancient flamethrower. The Byzantines developed one of history's most feared weapons. Greek fire around the 7th century CE. This incendiary liquid could ignite on contact and was nearly impossible to extinguish, even on water. It gave the Byzantine navy a powerful advantage, much like modern Roman engineering, roads and siege machines. The Roman military machine wasn't just about soldiers. It was about infrastructure. Their roads allowed troops to move quickly, while aqueducts and fortifications supported long campaigns. Roman siege weapons, such as catapults, ballistae, and battering rams, laid the foundation for modern artillery. The principles of leverage and torsion used in these machines still inform modern mechanical engineering. Armor and helmets. The birth of protection gear from the bronze helmets of Mycenae to the iron chainmail of the Celts. Ancient warriors experimented with protective gear. The Romans perfecto segmented armor. Lorica segmentat, that combined flexibility with defense, an early ancestor of today. Kevlar body armor and bulletproof vests. Military strategy. From Sun Tzu to modern commanders, technology alone didn't win war strategy. Did ancient China's Sun Tzu, in the art of war, taught that deception, timing, and psychological warfare were as important as brute force. These lessons remain required reading in military academies today. From chariots to chemical warfare, from armor to strategy, ancient innovations laid the foundation for the weapons and tactics of modern armies. History shows us that every missile, tank, or drone has roots buried deep in the past. Chapter 7. Fast food and restaurants. Ancient Rome and China. When we think of fast food, we picture burger joints, pizza chains, or takeout apps buzzing with notifications. Yet the roots of modern fast food and restaurant culture stretch deep into ancient history, particularly in Rome and China, where convenience dining was already a thriving industry thousands of years ago. Rome's thermopolia. The first fast food counters in ancient Rome. Not everyone had the luxury of a private kitchen. Many city dwellers, especially the poor, lived in insulae apartment blocks that lacked cooking facilities. To meet their daily needs, the Romans relied on thermopolia, small street-side shops where hot, ready-to-eat meals were served. Archaeologists in Pompeii and Herculaneum have uncovered well-preserved thermopolia, complete with counters embedded with large clay jars. Dolia used to store food and drinks. The menu often included bread, cheese, lentils, stews, sausages, fish, and spiced wine. Much like today's fast food restaurants, thermopolia were affordable, convenient, and essential to urban life. Interestingly, thermopolia weren't just food stalls, they were also social hubs. Workers, travelers, and locals gathered there, much like modern people meeting friends at a cafe or grabbing lunch at a diner. China's early restaurants and tea houses, meanwhile, on the other side of the world. China was developing what may be considered the earliest true restaurants. By the time of the Song Dynasty 962-1279 CE, China's bustling cities like Kafeng and Hangzhou had thriving dining establishments that catered to all classes. Unlike Rome's quick counters, Chinese restaurants offered menus, table service, and a wide variety of dishes. Travelers, merchants, and scholars could sit down to enjoy regional specialties such as noodles, dumplings, roast meats, and seafood. Tea houses also flourished, combining dining with entertainment like storytelling, music, and games. The Chinese were pioneers in food diversity. Records show that chefs competed to create dishes from across the empire, offering early versions of what we'd now call fusion cuisine. The idea of choice-selecting dishes from a menu was revolutionary and laid the groundwork for the modern dining experience. Comparing Rome and China. While Rome's thermopolia focused on speed and affordability, China's restaurants emphasized variety and comfort. Together, they illustrate two sides of the same coin. Convenience dining. Rome gave us the blueprint for the fast food chain, while China created the template for the sit-down restaurant. Both cultures highlight how urbanization drives the demand for public dining. Large populations, busy work schedules, and limited home cooking facilities made eating out not a luxury, but a necessity. Influence on today's fast food culture. Fast forward to today, and we can see clear echoes of these ancient practices. Thermopolia equals street food vendors and fast food chains. Quick, affordable meals for people on the move. Chinese Song dynasty restaurants equals modern restaurants. Menus, service, variety, and a dining atmosphere. Tea houses, Danyu cafes, and lounges. Places to eat, drink, and socialize beyond just food. The next time you grab a burger on your lunch break or sit down at a Chinese restaurant, you're participating in traditions shaped by cultures thousands of years ago. From Rome's hot food counters to China's refined dining halls, the invention of restaurants and fast food was not a modern concept, but a timeless response to the rhythms of urban life. Chapter 8. Contact lenses and eyeglasses. Ancient Egypt and Rome, for most of human history, poor eyesight was seen as an unfortunate limitation of age or fate. Yet, across civilizations, people experimented with ways to bend light and improve vision long before the invention of modern glasses or contact lenses. The quest to correct sight wasn't born in the Renaissance. It stretches back to the ancient Egyptians, Romans, and beyond. Egypt's crystals of vision in ancient Egypt, where craftsmanship and science often blended with spirituality. Polished crystals were not just ornaments but tools. Archaeologists have discovered smooth, rounded pieces of quartz and other transparent stones believed to have been used as rudimentary magnifiers. Priests and scribes may have used these crystals to read small hieroglyphs or study intricate details in papyrus. While these weren't glasses in the modern sense, they reveal an early awareness that vision could be enhanced by refracting light through a curved surface. Rome's experiments with glass, centuries later. The Romans pushed the science of optics further. The philosopher Seneca, the younger 04 BCE, 265 CE, wrote about using a globe of water to magnify letters on a page. This is one of the earliest written records of someone deliberately applying lenses to improve reading. Roman artisans, already skilled in glass making, also experimented with glass spheres and convex pieces to enlarge texts. These innovations may not have been practical eyeglasses, but they planted the seeds of optical science. The medieval breakthrough. Eyeglasses in Italy. It wasn't until the 13th century in Italy that the first true eyeglasses appeared. Crafted with convex lenses mounted in frames, these early spectacles were designed to help monks and scholars read manuscripts. Unlike Egyptian crystals or Roman globes, these were wearable devices, practical, portable, and transformative. Within a century, eyeglasses spread across Europe, improving literacy and scholarship. They became so essential that by the Renaissance, depictions of scholars often included spectacles as a symbol of wisdom and learning. From eyeglasses to contact lenses, while eyeglasses flourished, the dream of a more natural vision aid lingered. In the early 1500s, Leonardo da Vinci sketched designs for what we would now call contact lenses, placing the eye directly in contact with water or curved glass. Though his designs were never built, they laid the intellectual foundation for later experiments. By the 19th and 20th centuries, inventors created wearable contact lenses, fulfilling a vision that had been centuries in the making. An ancient quest for clear sight. What is remarkable about this story is its continuity across time. From Egyptian crystals to Roman water globes, from Italian spectacles to Da Vinci's sketches, humanity has always sought to improve vision. Modern eyeglasses and contact lenses may seem like inventions of recent science, but they are the latest chapters in a much older journey. Every time you put on glasses or slip in contact lenses, you are participating in an ancient tradition of curiosity, experimentation, and innovation. Vision correction is not modern, it is an ancient quest. Our ancestors looked at the stars, the written word, and the world around them, and asked, "Can we see more clearly?" Their pursuit still shapes how we see today. Chapter 9. Central heating. Ancient Rome's hypocaust system. When we think of central heating, we often picture modern radiators, thermostats, and floor heating systems designed for comfort in cold climates. Yet more than 2,000 years ago, the Romans had already mastered a surprisingly advanced system of climate control. The hypocaust. This innovation, first appearing around the 1st century BC, was the ancient world's answer to central heating and a powerful symbol of Roman engineering brilliance. The invention of the hypocaust. The word hypocaust comes from the Greek words hypo under and caust burnt or heat. True to its name, the hypocaust worked by circulating hot air beneath the floors and through the walls of a building. Roman engineers constructed floors on a series of stone or brick pillars, leaving a hollow space underneath. Furnaces located at one end of the building would burn wood or charcoal, producing hot air and smoke. This air flowed under the raised floor and into hollow flues built into the walls, heating rooms from below and from within. This system was not only ingenious but also highly effective, creating a steady, radiant warmth that feels remarkably similar to today's underfloor heating systems. Luxury for the elite. Hypocausts were expensive to build and maintain, so they were typically found in the villas of the wealthy and in public bathhouses thermae. In Roman culture, baths were not just about hygiene, but about social life, relaxation, and even politics. Heated floors and walls made these communal spaces comfortable and inviting, even in the depths of winter. To the average Roman, the hypocaust symbolized luxury and sophistication in engineering. Marvel that transformed architecture into a tool for daily comfort. The fall and the forgotten technology. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed in the 5th century CE, so too did many of its technological advancements. The hypocaust, with its reliance on skilled engineering and constant fuel, disappeared from most of Europe. For centuries, Europeans relied on open hearths and fireplaces, far less efficient methods of heating. It wasn't until the 19th and 20th centuries that central heating re-emerged in modern forms, rediscovering the principles the Romans had already mastered millennia earlier. Echoes in the modern world today. Radiant floor heating systems. Pipes of hot water or electric heating coils running beneath floors are direct descendants of the hypocaust. The principle is identical, warming a room by radiating heat upward from below. Modern systems are safer, cleaner, and easier to maintain, but they share the same genius insight. Heating from beneath provides a steady, even warmth that feels more natural than heating air from above. A lasting legacy. The hypocaust is a striking example of how ancient innovations shaped the modern world. What seems like a 21st century luxury heated bathroom tiles. Cozy underfloor systems. Climate-controlled spas was already being enjoyed by Roman senators and bathers 2 millennia ago. It is a reminder that history doesn't just live in ruins and artifacts, it lives under our very feet, warming our homes much as it did the grand villas and bathhouses of Rome. Central heating, often hailed as a modern convenience, was first perfected in ancient Rome. Their hypocaust system not only kept citizens warm but also laid the foundation for technologies we still use today. Chapter 10. The Olympics. Ancient Greece. Few traditions bridge the gap between antiquity and the modern world as powerfully as the Olympic Games. First held in Olympia, Greece around 776 BCE. The ancient Olympics were more than a sporting event. They were a unifying force for the Greek world, a sacred festival dedicated to Zeus, and a stage where athletic skill, honor, and glory were celebrated. The birth of the Games, the Olympics, originated as part of a religious festival honoring Zeus, the king of the Greek gods. Every 4 years, athletes and spectators from across the Greek city-states gathered in Olympia, setting aside political rivalries in a rare truce known as the Olympic Peace. The earliest recorded event was a stadium race. a short sprint of about 200 meters. Over time, the program expanded to include wrestling, discus throwing, long jump, javelin, boxing, pankration, a brutal mix of boxing and wrestling, and dramatic chariot races. These events tested strength, speed, endurance, and strategy qualities highly admired in Greek culture. Gloria above wealth. Unlike today's athletes, who may earn millions in endorsements, ancient Olympians competed for honor, not wealth. The victors were crowned with a simple olive wreath, but received far greater rewards: lifelong fame, prestige for their city-state, and often free meals, front row seats at theaters, or even political influence. To be an Olympic victor was to achieve immortal glory, celebrated in poems, statues, and oral traditions. For the Greeks, athletic triumph was not just personal, it reflected the greatness of one's community. The modern revival, the ancient games, continued for over 1,000 years, until they were abolished in 393 CE under the Roman Empire. For centuries, they lived only in memory and myth. In 1896, inspired by the ideals of ancient Greece, the modern Olympics were revived in Athens by Pierre de Coubertin. This marked the beginning of a global tradition that today unites athletes from more than 200 nations. The torch, the stadium, the pursuit of excellence are echoes of Olympia. Though the medals are now gold instead of olive wreaths, the essence remains: the celebration of human strength, discipline, and unity. From ancient Olympia to the global stage, the Olympics endure as one of humanity's greatest legacies. Proof that the spirit of competition and the quest for glory are truly timeless. Conclusion: the timeless echo of innovation as we journeyed through these chapters, from the fire-heated floors of Rome's hypocausts to the cosmic star maps of Egypt, from ancient fast food and bustling Roman streets to the birth of the Olympic Games in Greece, one truth shines through: innovation is not new, it is unseen. We often view modern technology, science, and culture as breakthroughs of the present age. But in reality, much of what defines our daily lives was dreamed up thousands of years ago. The first alarm clocks rang in ancient Greece. The earliest vending machines dispensed holy water in Egypt, and the Roman aqueducts carried fresh water with an efficiency that rivals modern engineering. Even eyeglasses, central heating, and the foundations of fast food trace their roots back to civilizations we call ancient. The ingenuity of our ancestors reminds us that the human quest to solve problems, improve life, and seek meaning has always been part of who we are. The tools have changed: stone, bronze, steel, and now silicon, but the spirit of invention is timeless. By rediscovering these forgotten origins, we not only honor the brilliance of those who came before us, but also gain perspective. Every convenience we enjoy today stands on the shoulders of past visionaries. The Olympics, revived in modern times, are not just games. They are a living bridge to a 3,000-year-old tradition. The smartphone in your hand, the warm air in your home, even the food you order in minutes each, carries whispers of ancient ingenuity. So, the next time you marvel at a modern invention, remember, its story may have begun thousands of years ago, in a temple, a workshop, or a city long buried in time. Because history is not just about the past, it is the foundation of the present and the blueprint for the future.